So you must have recognized this image pretty well. I know you have, don't lie. So this image right here is the official default wallpaper of the Windows XP operating system. It's called Bliss and they must have taken the name inspiration from somewhere. Anyway, let's get to the point. Now for some reasons, I always thought this image to be CGI. I don't know why, and also this is not some cheap excuse to set up this video idea. I would never do such a thing. Anyways, turns out it's a real place somewhere in California. Now after hearing this, I was very shocked, felt like my whole childhood was a lie. So I like to keep it the other way. If the image is real, what if I can remake it virtually? So after a real long intro, I just wanted to say that I remade this image in Unreal Engine because I'm an environment designer now. So the very first thing I did was to create an empty Unreal Engine 5 project. I know, that was amazing. Well done me, that's a really good start. So I accidentally included the default content as well, which is not needed. Uh, Unreal comes with some default templates like this one. Is the third person one where you have this character and get you to invested in this. Got invested again to. Now, I was thinking of using the same landscape material which I made in my previous abandoned area project, but then I saw this video about an auto landscape material that automatically blends the textures or landscape layers for you. However, this was not what I needed for the project. What got me interested was this feature called cell bombing. So instead of using this linear style of tiling textures, which looks so repetitive, cell bombing uses some pseudo random numbers or noise data to tile the textures, which looks so much better than the standard UV grid. And in a clean open landscape, where there are less details, the base terrain textures may be heavily exposed, so you would want to use this to make repetitions less noticeable. Now I can create this feature in the landscape material I made previously, but instead of making from scratch, I can also use this one as it's available for download. So thank you, Sensei. Now, let's be honest. There's actually not so much to do in this scene. I mean, it's fairly basic scene with a horizon and grass, and only grass. But I might improvise a little bit, and as a good practice in environment design, I did my research. I envisioned the whole idea in my head. I devised a strategy for how things will go, of course, in my head. I stared at the screen looking the image for almost 420 hours. I searched landscapes on Google Images. I looked up references on Pinterest and arranged them at one place in pure ref, and I even watched geographic videos on grasslands and its types. Nice intro, by the way. Now I had a clear idea what I was making. I was going for a meadow grassland with a lush foliage environment and a bright sunny day in a windy atmosphere. And as you know, it's a real place. I first thought of using real world geospatial data for accurate depiction of the place, but instead I went for just sculpting and imitating as close as possible to the actual image because it doesn't need to be that accurate. Sculpting is easy and quick and gives more creative freedom. Then I applied the landscape master material, used some surface textures from Megascan's library, and paint the blended layers to make this base terrain. Now it was time for some foliage action. Again, Megascans just growing some plants and painted them over, and everything was going pretty swiftly and smoothly. So I saved the project, hit the set, and went on to the next day. So I was happy, had some sweet dreams last night, wake up cheerfully this morning, all to see my project files and map being corrupted. A classic game dev experience. But this also happened to me in my last project. Thankfully, Unreal has some backups, so I was able to retrieve the level, though losing some progress, and in this case where I only did two things, half the progress. Now it was time to add some wind. So I can use Megascan's wind system, but the wind system of Megascans is sus. As good as their other things are, I feel like the wind system is too wavy for me. kinda reminds me of this football meme video. So instead, I went on to create another solution to this wind system, some directional wind pivoted to the ground, contributing something to my own project, and it turned out pretty good. and it turned out pretty good. Works for me. Next comes the lighting. So for this project, I used HDRI, which I downloaded for free from Polyheaven, created a material and adjusted the HDRI and directional light accordingly until I was happy with the result. Now you might say this is done, right? But there's this mountain on the right side on the wallpaper. And just because I can and obviously know the peculiar reasons like duration, wash, distance divided by speed, I'm gonna also add that. So for adding that, I use Blender GIS to actually get the real landscape in the back, which I believe is this area. I might be wrong, but never mind. So just use the satellite data and texture and exported it to Unreal Engine and placed it far away in the background. I think it looks decent, to be honest. And we are almost done. Now it was time for finally creating the camera sequence and rendering the whole thing. But you might have noticed this black foliage in the distance. I'm not sure what the problem was, maybe with Lumen. Initially I was going to render this with path tracing, but I was not able to work it out with my GTX 1660 Ti. So maybe that would have fixed it. I also saw some tutorials where similar issue was solved using ray tracing commands and shadows, but in my case I wasn't using ray tracing, so that didn't work out for me. I think it was a problem with subsurface color and megascan translucency textures, which when I used albedo map as a texture for translucency, the issue was gone, but it made the foliage somewhat fluorescent. But I wanted that shadowy details for plants that were close to camera. So what I did was to duplicate the material and foliage assets, and those foliages which were having the albedo translucency, I used those ones for the far distance and just adjusted the values to match it with the front. So all done, I exported the result and did some final adjustments in DaVinci Resolve, and finally it's time to see the result. You might be noticing that it looks different from what was there in the video, and that's because I actually changed the whole foliage. So let me just show you what was the first iteration. As you can see, I was earlier going for a more grown up grasses, which I didn't like when it rendered out. And also I scattered foliage across the whole visible landmass, even in the distant locations, which just looks like some noises now. Also, it was killing my system, this much foliage. So I revamped the whole scene, made it short to medium grasses and some daffodils, removed most of the foliages from the background, thus making this a different type of setting, which I think works better than the first one. And that is why, my friend, it's important to refactor and learn from your mistakes to be a better person. I might be not suitable for this motivation kind of talks. But anyway, on the bright side, I was getting performance. Woo! I think now my PC won't be unalive. So thanks for watching, hope you liked the video, hope you liked the environment. Subscribe to see more stuff like this, also watch my other environment videos. And now my friend, adios. Also like this video, share with your friends, you know the rest of the deal, comment, and you can also watch my game dev tutorials if you fancy yourself.